This is Karen with newclevelandradio.net, and it is time for Avoid the Maze. And my guest today is Diamond Cash. And if you are watching on Zoom right now, you will see that he is actually walking the streets. Wherever you are, Diamond, it looks beautiful there. So where are you walking right now?
I'm walking in Queens, so I'm in Jamaica. I live in New York.
Okay, all right. So it looks like it's a little cold there today.
Yes, yes, it is.
Yeah, that happens this time of the year, cold weather seeps in.
Yes.
So typically, Avoid the Maze is the story of our journey through life. And, from the day that we're born, there are plans that are made for us, and then there are plans that we make. And oftentimes, those plans sort of crash and burn, and we create a whole new path. So give us a little bit of information about who you are and not where you're walking to now, but where your path has been going.
Oh, where's my path been going? As far as like right now or towards the future is with my path.
So let's take a step back. When you were growing up,
Gotcha.
Where did you think you wanted to be? And is that where you are, or is that where you think you're going to?
Got it. Yes. So my path, when I was in junior high school, I wanted to be a firefighter. And when I wanted to be a firefighter, then I decided like you had to do a lot of like working out, and you had to do a lot of like counts and everything. And I'm like, you know what? I don't think I want to do this. Then I got to video games. Then I was like, ooh, I love to play video games. So how about I make video games? And then fast forward, when I was in college, I took a video game course where you had to learn about coding and you had to learn about a lot of stuff. And I realized that being behind the computer hours throughout the day was not for me. I like to move around. I like to go places. I like to travel. I like to talk to people, not just sit around behind a computer doing coding and doing everything. So I was like, so video games is not for me. Making video games is not for me. So, and then I tended to, after college, I picked up a camera. When I picked up a camera, I started doing videos and photos of my neighborhood, friends. And when I was tending to do that, I was like, hey, I like this. And then people started hiring me for photos, videos, and I started traveling. So I'm like, this is something that I like. And when I started doing that, I started doing videography, photography, and then now, fast forward, now I'm in the film industry. That's what I do for work, for my journey. I work in the film industry. I do locations for the directors and the producers. And it's been a journey. Like we go, whether we go upstate New York or Pennsylvania, like that's something that I like. But then now, because of my position of what I do, I would have to negotiate with like, okay, we want to film, on this block, or we want to film at your driveway, negotiate prices. And then we have to do permits, let the mayor know and everything else, and talk to residents. And that's something that I like to do. Now, when I was in junior high school, I didn't know I liked this,
Of course
talking to
not.
people. I didn't know that. I was just like, hey, you know what? I just want to be a firefighter because it was cool. It looked cool to me. So let me do it. And then I was like, that's not for me. Then when video games, I was like, I can't see myself doing this. And then I found my niche.
And
So,
that
mhm,
is so true of so many of us. We think at a certain age, hey, I know who I want to be. And we don't always get to be that person. And usually it's because that's not who we want to be. Okay. And what I love about talking to people like yourself is that our listeners can see themselves. They can say, you know what? Yeah, I dreamed about being a professional singer. But when I saw that I was going to have to starve for years to be the professional singer, I chose another path. And you know what? This may
yes,
not be the last path you're on, Cash. You know that because there's so much else out there that you're going to experience in life. So,
absolutely. And yes,
so you knew you liked, you thought you wanted to be a firefighter because it looked exciting. And you know what? When we're
yes,
when we're in junior high school, that's what we're looking for. School is sort of boring at junior high school. We're looking for that excitement. And so you looked at it
oh,
and you realize that, hey, this is a lot of work to have excitement.
yes, yes, absolutely. And also about being a video game programmer or just making video games, you're gonna it was boring to me. I didn't feel excited. I didn't feel the excitement of like, when you want to wake up in the morning and you feel excited that you want to do something. I didn't feel that. When I took a course and I took a class, I was like, I have to, and it was like, it got overwhelming for me also because one code can mess up the whole thing.
I absolutely
Yeah,
understand that. Uh,
yeah,
it's funny. My husband, back in the 80s, worked for what was then a very small company by the name of Microsoft. And when he was working for Microsoft, they were looking for alpha testers. And so he volunteered me. And in the beginning, I loved it. It was like working a puzzle and, trying something out. I didn't know the first thing about a computer, let alone computer software. But then I did find after a while, it was tedious. It was boring, because I was doing the same type of testing over and over again. So in the beginning, I thought, this is exciting. I'm going to be on the fringe of computing. And then I realized, you know what? No, I don't want to be on that side of the computer, just like you said. I needed something more.
absolutely.
So
Yes.
because you were taking pictures and taking video, how did you get noticed? Because it's not that easy to get into the film industry. So what was the connection?
So when I was when I was in college and when I was taking the video arts and technology, the students, my that I was working, so we started building connections and started going to events. People that was in the industry. We started talking to directors, producers, grips. We was talking to the writers. We was talking to the assistant directors of how can we get our foot in the door of being in the film industry? And when we got that, connection, there was a producer that came to our school and talked to us about how can we get in the industry. And once we talked about, and he was dropping gems on it. He was dropping gems on the event and everything. And he's like, okay, so it did take quite a while. It did after college.
Yep.
It definitely did. But then after I did a program called Made in New York. So after when I did the program Made in New York, and then that's when I started getting into the industry because it was so many connections. And then a lot of people that from my college was also getting connections. So one works in sports media. Another one, he works now in he's a set PA. And I started out as a set PA too. It was a Netflix show called Barry. That was my first job as a set PA. And then I worked my way up as, doing locations. So yeah, if now I have an IMDb, that's a resume, and now I'm still getting connections of talking to directors and producers. That way I can keep, working my way up because my ultimate goal is to become a producer.
And some of the things you just said are so important for people to hear. You have to work at it. Okay. It doesn't you just don't get it. Okay. It's not just handed to you. My brother, who happens to be a music producer, that's not what he trained for in college. He went to college to become an architect. And he decided right before graduation, I don't want to be an architect. I don't care what I learned the last 5 years. And he walked away, got in his car, and drove out to the West Coast. And he starved for many years. He delivered newspapers, he delivered pizzas, but in between, he went to every music studio that he could. And he listened and he made connections. And I remember my parents saying one day, when are you going to come home and settle down? And his answer was, never. This is my dream. I'm going to do it. And he did. I know when I started podcasting, I went to him and I said, okay, you have all these connections. Could you introduce me? And he said, work at it. As you work at it, I'll network with you. I'm not just going to hand you a list of names. I'm just not going to tell you that these people are going to interview with you. He said, you have to prove yourself. And my first reaction was, how dare you? You're my brother. And then I thought, I am so glad that you did that because I had to prove that this is who I am and what I want to do. And that's what you're doing as well.
Absolutely, yeah. That's very inspirational for the story. That definitely. And when people can take on to that, they be like, if he can do it, then if he or she can do it, then I can definitely do it. Yes. I can build my dreams and goals, and I can have a purpose, in life, because that's the purpose of you, coming in, and you're growthful. You're going and you're growthful. And when you do that, you're like, okay, what is my goal? What is my dream? What can I do? What can I do that way when I make myself happy? Now I can be able to repeat it and I can inspire others to do the same.
Absolutely. So, as somebody who's out there looking for locations, how do you how do you come about it? Because I was watching, I think it was a Netflix movie this weekend, and there's a scene in it that they keep going back to, and it's looking out on the supposed to be the Pacific Ocean. I don't know if it truly is or not, how much is, but this area is so dramatic looking. And as I watched it, I kept thinking, how did you know to pick this spot? How did you know that this spot was going to be inspirational in the movie? So as you're going throughout the state of New York, Pennsylvania, wherever it is there something that you're specifically looking for, or are you just looking?
So so far as like, the Department of Locations in the film and TV world, so the director say, hey, let's say I want a warehouse. So they get I want to film a warehouse. We look at the script, see, what particular, what exactly what they're looking for, because we don't pick the locations, we give them options.
Okay.
So when we give them options, we give them about like 4 or 5 options. We give them to, so the location scout, when he scout the locations, give it to the location manager. They take pictures. When they take pictures, so you're taking like pictures of the location. So when you take pictures of the location, you're not just taking a picture and that's it. You have to take a picture like you're telling a story.
Got it.
So when you take pictures like you're telling a story, that is when you have to say what's the location, give the description of what it is, and when you do that, the director is the one that picks that location. Once he picks, he's like, "Oh, I like this one." If once they do that, then that's when the process goes. That's when negotiation comes into place, and that's where it's a whole process. Yeah.
And I like how you said that when you take that picture has to tell a story. You're not just
Yes.
taking a snapshot and saying, here's a wall and,
Yep.
whatever. And I love that because my husband, he's a would-be photographer. That's the best way I can describe him. But when he takes a picture, his pictures do tell stories. He doesn't just look at the landscape and say, oh, it's pretty. It's, what do I see in the landscape? And truthfully, when you look at his photos, you see what he's seeing because he's got an eye for it. So I'm sure that when the director has information about what kind of location they're looking for, now you know what you want to find and how you want that to be expressed in your photography.
Yes.
So you say that you want to keep growing, you want to become a producer. So what does it take to become a producer? Because there are so many people out there who call themselves producers, and we know that they're just running down the street with their camera phone.
So there's plenty of ways to become a producer. So it's either you get into the film industry and you work your way up. You can get to the accounting department. There's a locations department. And there was another department. There was another department that you can get in that gets you to the producer level. So it's more like you work your way up. That's one way. Another way is you do your own films. If you want to do your own film and TV, get funded, and do a couple of film TV shows, do film festivals. Um, that's another way. And also, you can get picked up by Netflix, or you can get picked up by studios or Disney or something, you know. That's another way. But that is going to take hard work, definitely hard work. As you know, whenever you want to build a solid, a solid film and TV set, definitely. Film and TV portfolio is not easy at all. You have to build a solid one in order for the studios to actually see how actually see if they can be a part your film a part of their streaming platforms.
You know, I'm so glad
So
that you
yeah.
said that about the hard work. You have to have a creative drive. You also have to be able to hear a lot of no's and listen
Oh
to
yes,
why it's a no.
yes.
Because a no doesn't mean forever. A no means no for now. But what can I do differently with it? And that's something that you have to be vulnerable enough to ask. What was it that made it a no? What would have made it a yes? And sometimes it's like, don't even use that script. Okay. I have a friend who had a book written about him, and people came to him and said they wanted to make a movie, and he was all excited about it. And this probably started about 8 years ago. And the book did okay. It wasn't, didn't make the, top sellers, but it did okay. But the problem was every time a script was written for it, it was just in the wrong time at the wrong place. And not too long ago, he was watching something on Netflix and he choked and he said, "That's my story." Somebody got a hold of his story, reworked it, made it look good enough, and sold it. And that happens in the industry. Yeah.
Wow.
So as much as we want to put our stuff out there, sometimes we have to hold some of it to the vest so that it still remains ours.
Oh, say that again. Say that again. Say that
Because,
again.
when you're creating something, you want everybody to see it. You want somebody to jump on board, but there's so much in our writing that it can be, I'm not going to even say plagiarized. It can be written just slightly different and taken to a different person, and it works. And that's just part of the business. Part of the business.
Absolutely. Yes. So yeah, so definitely it is part of the business of the film. And also I would say this. The film industry is something that it's a very competitive field, and it's not something that you just have to do like an application or something like that, unless you go to Indeed or LinkedIn, and you're going for these shows, the TV shows
Right.
that you see every morning. That's different. But as for the film and TV world, that you want to, that you watch Netflix for movies and you watch a episodic, show, that's different. Those are ones that you have to know someone, and you also have to be liked. You have to know someone, and you have to like in order to be in this industry. But always remember, and I said this before, when once you get your feet in the door, that doesn't mean that's it. You have to still build connections after connections. That way you can still keep on getting phone calls, keep getting work. And that way, like, now you're starting to get busy for your career.
And
Yeah.
and that applies to all careers, to be honest. Okay.
Yes.
You know, a young teenager who finally gets their first job and they think, well, you know, this is just a teenage job. Well, maybe it is, but you don't know who you're going to meet along the way while you're working your first job. You don't know what skills you can gain at that job. So you really need to make those connections. You really need to make friends. And I'm not saying friends that you're going out drinking with, but friends in the industry so that you are networking and growing. Because you know what? We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. 10 years ago, if you would have told me that I was going to take the step and do what I'm doing today, I would have laughed. Okay. I had a corporate job. I enjoyed what I was doing. I just hated the culture I was doing it in. And that's what my son said to me one day. He said, Mom, why aren't you doing what you really love? Why aren't you out there working with people? Why aren't you coaching? Why aren't you podcasting? Why aren't you writing? And I said, I don't know. And he goes, well, you have a whole life ahead of you. You need to do it. So we're never too old and we're never too young to get going.
Absolutely. And is it okay if I ask you a question?
Sure, go right ahead.
Okay, so what was the like for you know the people that's watching this? What was the inspiration behind your story of building your podcast and the name of your podcast? What was the inspiration behind it?
So the inspiration for me podcasting really was I graduated high school in 1968. I wanted to be in broadcasting. And my parents looked at me and said, we're not wasting our money. How many women are really going to make it in broadcasting? You should be a teacher. But behind their back, I got my associate's degree in communications. And then they pulled me out of college. It was, hey, you've just wasted our money. But every job I took, I got involved somehow in speaking, in training, doing something that had to do with communications and broadcasting. When I left corporate America, I knew that deep down inside, it had taken me 50 plus years to work towards my dream. My dream was to be in communications. So I started podcasting, but it wasn't until 3 years ago I started Avoid the Maze. And the reason behind the title is we're all walking in a maze our whole life. And some of us just keep hitting that wall and we bounce off of it. And we're afraid to turn right, turn left. We don't want to turn around and go back. And so we stand in one place doing the same thing day after day after day. Well, I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want you to do it. I don't want anybody to do that. When you hit the wall, I want us to think about what are the options. Because you had many options in your life. You could have been a firefighter. You could have been a programmer. You could have done, and you got the training in so many different areas. But you sort of knew deep down inside, there's something else. I got to go find it. You didn't stop at the wall. And you're not going to stop there yet. You're going to keep looking. So there are going to be days, I'm sure, that you walk into that wall and you think, okay, where am I?
Absolutely.
But don't you look to the right and to the left? Don't you go to the people that you know and say, okay, I'm stuck. I got to get moving again. How do I do it? And that's when I took on coaching, because I realized that when we get to that wall, we need somebody there that's going to say, okay, here's my hand, but I'm going to follow you. I'm not going to take you. I'm going to follow you and I'm going to support you through your journey. That's why I do what I do.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and I love that when you said that. That's truly an inspiration of, and also to continue on that for what you said, and it was spot on. It's and I want to continue saying it's definitely like when you focusing on, it's like driving a car, and when you focus on driving your car, that's the thing about, when you have goals and dreams and your purpose is you're driving a car and you're driving to your destination. And just like you said, when you go left and when you go right, you have to look through your direction. You have to look left, right, just to turn that right to your destination. And when you and it can be bumps, it can be bruises on that road, absolutely.
Well, and
But the whole purpose is you did it.
uh, before the podcast today, my son called. We're all going to be in upstate New York for Thanksgiving. And he said, Mom, I'm putting a little change on our trip. And I said, what's that? And he said, we need to go to the Hall of Fame, Baseball Hall of Fame. And one of our dear friends, some of his equipment is being inducted into the Hall of Fame. And he just wants to go and see it. He says, I don't have to touch it. I just have to see it and know that it's there. And my first reaction was, no, we can't do that. We're already booked. But I stopped and it was like, you know what? We can do it. We'll find a way to do it because, yeah, it's going to take us in a slightly different direction, but that's okay. And I think if we all look at life that way and realize that things don't have to be the same day in and day out. There are certain routines that we do need, but you know what? If we're mindful, just watching you walk through this podcast, I'm sitting here almost envious that you're out there in the world walking because so many of us don't do that. Especially in Ohio, I get in my car and I drive across the street. Okay. I don't.
Yes. I stopped I stopped on a corner because I have a long way home. So I was like, you know what? Let me stop through the corner and let me focus. Absolutely. And then let me continue walking.
I certainly appreciate because I could tell that maybe there was a little getting out of breath along the way too. So do you have an assignment coming up that you're excited about?
So you mean like as far as like work,
Yeah.
my job?
Yep.
So because of because of the SAG strike and everything, things got a little slow. Things got slow because of the writer's strike and the SAG strike. So now that they both got a deal, everything is bringing back up. And the next project, it's going to be busy because of the strike. It held a lot of films and TV shows to be on pause until they reach a deal. So now that they reach a deal, it's going to be it's definitely going to be very busy.
I'm sure it is.
So I'm gonna be honest. I can't. I'm under contract. I can't say the show that I'm gonna be working on. I can only tell you after when I'm done with the show.
That's perfect.
So I did get a couple of phone calls. So I know what I'm going to be working on 3 shows next year. I'm I wish I can't say it, but I can't
No,
say it. I wish
but
I
I
can
like the
say it, but I
fact that,
can't.
but I'm glad that you do have the work coming up, because that strike did put so many people at pause. My
Yes.
son's best friend is an editor, and she was lucky that she already had stuff that she was working on. So, but she even said that if the strike had lasted much longer, she had no idea, you know, how things were going to go. So, those of us who are sitting at home watching TV, or who are going to the movies, we don't realize what it really does to the industry when these strikes go on. And, this time I had connections with people, knowing what they were going through. I have two friends who are writers, and they were just like, now what? You know, how do I put food on my table while this is all going on? And if it lasts much longer, that's going to be difficult. So we all need to be a little bit more aware of what's going on and understand, and be supportive of each other.
Absolutely. And definitely the support is definitely what is needed to each other. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, Cash, I'm so excited that you came on today. Now, what I want to do is I'm going to put it on my calendar, and I've got to call you about a year from now so we can find out what it is that you've been working on, so that
Absolutely. Yeah.
we can
No
talk
problem.
about it and say, hey, we knew you when.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah, that's absolutely no problem. If I'm open to, I'm definitely open to what would you if you want to do another podcast, it can be next month, next year. I'm definitely open to it. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for connecting with us. And how can our listeners follow you if there's something that they want to ask you, or maybe start networking with you?
So you can follow me on Instagram on Diamond Cash Rich. If you want to see my IMDb, you can also look at my resume. So it's when you go to IMDb website, it's Rich Rogers. And also, well, that's for my entrepreneurship side. If you want to connect with me with that one, my Instagram is DC Incentives number 4. Or you can email me. My email is dcincentives 4.
Okay.
So yeah.
Well, all that will be in the show notes. So nobody has an excuse that they don't know how to find you, or to follow you, or to hire you, because all of it's going to be there for you. And I love it.
Yes.
So thank you again for joining us. And I hope the rest of your walk home is as pleasurable. And
Thank you. Oh, I forgot one thing. I meant to say at gmail.com. I'm sorry about
Gmail.
that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Yes.
I have all that. I'll make sure that I put it in the show notes, and so no excuses. And we will have you back. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Have a great day.
Absolutely.
Bye-bye
Same
now.
to you. Thank you. All right now.